Okay. Hi, everybody. Welcome to this podcast. I'm super delighted to be in the presence of Annie Williams, a very, very incredible woman. I really see you as a mentor, Annie. Annie is very passionate about the ancient mysteries. She's a harpist. I see her as a bard or a druidess that's traveled the world as a tour guide from America to the Celtic north of Europe to Egypt. She is a singer-songwriter. She's recorded 25 albums of original creations, starting in 1981, the year I was born. So that's like 44 years ago.
Okay, I was celebrating you, my dear.
You're also sound medicine, voice analysis. You have a very profound connection with sound and the ancient mysteries of sound. And I would love for you to talk about that. You created an online training on sound. And you also wrote a book that we're going to talk about today, The Guardian of the Dragon Path, that is uh, pretty much 40 years of researches, right? About,
Well, I mean, all the life goes into something like
yeah.
this, but basically about 18 years active research across the Pyrenees.
That's amazing. So Annie William and I finally met last fall and on a Celtic ancient sites, and we spent a day sharing what we love the most, sounding into ancient sacred sites and trying to understand the legacy of our ancestors.
Hmm,
So, welcome, Annie. Is there anything you
thank
want to add
you.
to this presentation? That's pretty full.
You covered it. I think you've covered it. I mean, who can cover everything we do? It's impossible. These days
Absolutely.
we are really expanding so quickly and it feels sometimes like I'm going in a million directions. And so to manifest something like that book was major. And I'm working on book two now.
Oh,
I think
wow.
you are going to be so happy, my dear.
Oh,
The
yeah?
next one is the ancient guardians of ancient Gaul and the
Oh,
ancient
wow.
Celtic traditions. Yeah.
Wow. Gaul meaning?
Well, that's the old term for what we know as France.
Oh, yeah, la Gaule. Oui, 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 oui. Okay,
Gaul.
wow. Yeah, 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 yeah. Wow. Okay, so where to start? I was very, very moved to meet you and discover your work because you feel like a mentor to me, someone that has been doing this for years and opened the trail that such a few people really inquire. And yet it's such a powerful and important legacy in order to understand who we really are. So yeah,
We are on the same path,
we
my
are.
dear. We are ancient sisters, brothers,
Mhm.
whatever form we have taken, I think we know each other.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's talk about um, the Dragon Path. What is the Dragon Path? How does this book came along? How would you, yeah, introduce us to your beautiful
Yeah.
book?
Well, it's many strands into this this story. There are myths in the Pyrenees of the creator dragons.
Hmm.
There are ancient temples on both sides of the Pyrenees, and they the ancient sites. What I discovered, they're aligned to ancient pathways that were used by animals and people for
Mm.
perhaps not just thousands of years, but millions of years.
Mm.
But we're able to prove that for the last 6,000 years, megalithic temples such as standing stones, menhirs, dolmens, stone houses, and so forth, were erected along these pathways that were ancient transhumance paths of animals and people across the base of the Pyrenees. And as I searched, I also found pathways running north-south on a major meridian that scientists called the Paris-Suro meridian in the 1600s, which was actually established on an older meridian. So I started discovering these pathways that reach back in time, used by ancient people and animals, herds, cultures, time after time, using these same pathways. And I
Wow.
was fascinated by this. Yeah, if
Absolutely.
can you bring that larger,
Yes,
whatever
I
you're going
am.
to
I am.
show?
There we go. Yes. So,
Okay. Oh, there it is. Great. Yeah. So, this shows it's a little bit small here, but this shows the Paris Meridian from the North Sea right down to past near Barcelona on the Spanish coast. Spain used to be called Iberia, the Iberian Peninsula, and France was called Gaul, as you see in the image. And they measured the Paris meridian right down to an island in the Mediterranean called Mallorca.
the island of
And
Mallorca.
yes, magical, magical. Menorca and Mallorca are part of the Balearic Islands. And guess what? At the bottom of the meridian, as far as they measured it at the southern end, I discovered it was measured to a place called Isla Dragonera, the Isle of the Female Dragon. So
That's
this is
amazing.
what started giving me the clue that this was part of an ancient dragon path.
Okay, so let's talk about dragon paths. For those of the people that are listening to us that are not very familiar, how would you describe like the importance of the dragon in ancient Celtic culture and ancient people culture, and what is it exactly?
Yeah, yeah. It's so many things. It's a huge scope to explain. In the ancient Chinese traditions, dragon lines or dragon paths were called lung mi, and actually, or lung mei. And uh, what is the capital of Peking?
Pekin, yeah,
Beijing
Beijing.
is on one of those major dragon lines. And they
Hmm.
talked about it. They talked about, building their temples along this line to work with the dragon energies, which can be looked at as pure movements of energy.
Like the vital forces of the earth, the vital forces of the earth.
Exactly. The telluric forces, the telluric
Yes,
currents of movement that are connected with the stars
yes.
and the meridians from the north to the south pole as they go everywhere around our planet. And the dragon paths go different directions as well. Um, Dragon paths can be considered energies of star paths, influences of not only our sun, but distant stars and galaxies. They can be considered paths of resonance that can be measured, sound waves. So, really, the ancient people, when they noticed how serpents move, serpents were considered similar to dragon energy.
Yes.
They
In
were
the, yeah.
considered, yeah, in many different cultures, no
Yeah.
matter where you look, Native American,
Yes.
Celtic, you look everywhere, Egypt, and they considered, they watched how the serpent movement moved, literally how they moved across the earth, the serpents. And then they saw that it was like the rivers and how the rivers moved. And then they noticed, because they were so sensitive, much more sensitive than most of us are today, because they were people, ancient people were living closer to nature. So they lived with the natural cycles and the natural forces. So they noticed how energy moved in these waveforms as well. So, it's resonance, it's movement of energy, and also they take imagery in the ancient cultures. They were depicted as dragons or serpents, Naga deities in India, the Nagual in
Hmm.
the Yaqui tradition of the wise teachers.
Yes.
Um,
So it's through every culture. It's like before the way that I understand it, if you uh, in French we say si tu me permets. It's like it's the planetary grid. It's the sacred elemental power of the earth that flows through territories from which nature will build itself. And it's been before the Industrial Revolution, which is the outcome of so many genocides where we've lost connection with our metaphysical abilities to perceive the deep
yes,
essence of nature. We used to live in profound reverence to the dragon path, to the ley lines, to the snake line. In all the cultures of the earth, we find them. And even
yes.
all the ancient temples are on these lines, right? Yeah.
Absolutely. They're connecting a matrix, an
Yes.
earth matrix.
Yes.
And these energy lines are lit up when we do sound in these temples,
Yes.
right?
Yes, sister.
Can
Yes.
Chanting and sacred music, music with a sacred intention of
Yes.
well-being and benevolence
Mm,
creates light. We can measure this.
yes,
So
absolutely.
in this idea of the dragon paths, they're inside of each one of us as well. The
Yes.
ancient terms in the Vedas for meridian pathways within ourselves is called nadi,
Mhm.
Nadi. The sacred sound is called nada, or the sound waves. Na is the connecting force at its root in every ancient language that I've looked at, or many ancient languages, let's say.
Wow.
Hebrew, Egyptian, Sanskrit, Mayan, um, all have the root na, meaning this serpentine force or energy. Nadi,
Wow.
Nada, Nagwal, the wise ones.
Mm.
Nashak means serpent in Hebrew. The Nasine order of healers and medicine. It's really wild how it all connects when you start looking into the languages and the customs and how they all really connect at such a deep level.
Absolutely. It's so amazing to hear you, Annie, because this is what I've been teaching to the people here, and it's just so amazing to hear it with such expertise and clarity from someone else.
Oh,
So, so sound and the dragons are very connected, and we are also channels of the dragon. Do you think, I mean, I do feel, and maybe you agree with me that like um becoming the channel of the dragon again is healing humanity from its core power, its well of energy. And I went and studied Chartres, and they're all the masters are standing on dragons. So we're very far from what dogma how dogma evilized the dragon. They evilized the
exactly.
initiatory power of life, which is the dragon.
Yes. This is a really, really important point that you bring
Yeah.
up. And, Vishnu is sitting on a bed of a great dragon or serpent. And I have images in my home of the Buddhas with the cobra coming over the head or holding the serpent power. It represents the wisdom that was um, a tradition that was cut at a certain point in history. We can blame it on the Church of Rome. A lot of the, in Revelations even, it says, the dragon and serpent, they link it together and name them both as the force of evil. So it became satanic. It became because you can't control the people when they have the wisdom and the power,
Exactly. And
right?
that's the dragon is the power. It's the forbidden power. Like, when I give my vocal retreats, training, I'm always saying to people, like, become the dragon, like, sit on your dragon and let the dragon initiate you. Let that raw power, because if that raw power falls asleep, we have a tendency to get really sick. Like
Yeah.
that, the freedom, the free dragon is also the the the, the vital power that we can access that is
Well,
initiating us. Yeah.
yeah, it's the Kundalini. It's that serpent coiled at the root of the spine, and you can read incredible teachings on the Kundalini path. It's not just about sexuality; it's about vital force. We have to go
Yes.
back to the origins, the vital
Yes.
force, and it can become sexuality, it can become creativity, it can become personal empowerment. And I became really fascinated with the traditions and mythology in the Pyrenees,
Yes.
especially with the Basque people. And
Uh-huh.
can I share something
Yes,
with
please go
your
ahead.
audience? This is how the book starts, and I really really honor the archaeologist Martin Locker for digging these up from the Basque tradition. He says Benzozia, mother dragon, still sleeps fitfully beneath the earth, and sometimes fire escapes her jaws again, emerging from the cracks in the peaks of the mountains. It's that vital force, that creative force, the magma within the earth. Thus, not only are the Basque people born from a primordial dragon's fire, but the very Pyrenees themselves lie on top of Benzozia's sleeping body. And they say that when she turns in her sleep or when she's moving, there's a great rumbling that occurs. And she has a lover, a paramour who is a male dragon. And they meet on Venus's day, on Friday. And they consort and come together to create this vital force. And when that happens, the great lightning and thunderstorms often occur, crashing down through the Pyrenees. So it's that vital force in the weather. And the messages, I have actually had two different occurrences where great dragon guardians of different mountains or valleys have approached me, and this was a surprise because, I always looked at dragons as mythological creatures. Um, and yet they're making a great comeback. We have the House of the Dragon, a very popular HBO series, and books on dragons coming out, and awareness awakening. And that when they approached me, I said, "Well, how can I help you?" And they said, "Well, first of all, we'd like a song, or I would like a song for my area, for my region." And I go, "Okay." So I would write the song for the dragon and play it for them. And I asked them, "Well, how can I be of assistance to your kind?" And they said, "Well, we feed on music. We love music, but actually we need humanity to work with us again. We need to mend that break and work together to save our planet, to work with the elemental kingdoms once again."
I have shivers and tears.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's true though. We've divorced
I
ourselves
know.
from this vital connection, and if we don't work together, we won't survive.
I agree, and that's what the giants taught me. You know, I have this connection with the great giants, and probably the ones that made the megaliths, by the way. And that's what they told me. You need to bring people on these on the doorways, on the sacred sites, and sing and garden this ethereal matrix of elemental power with sound, because this is how we've been doing it for thousands and thousands of years, and the Industrial Revolution swallowed that knowledge and buried it, but it's within us, it's rising, and it's super important.
Yes. And you know what you were talking about, this divorce of the dragon energy that not only in the industrial period, but before that with
Oh
the
yeah,
early church. And can you
absolutely.
bring up the next image,
Yes, yes.
please?
Yeah,
Because even the church iconography continued to
yes.
incorporate dragons and serpents. And we often see St. John the Evangelist with the Grail cup with a dragon or a serpent rising out of the cup. Now, in this
Absolutely.
case, it's a wonderful image that we found in a St. John's Church in Catalonia.
I want to go there. I'm going there in a few weeks.
Well, this image is in the Vic Museum. The
Okay.
town of Vic is
Okay.
right almost on the meridian, and right near it is this Church of St. John that the painting is from. And John's dragon is actually, he's not, you can see in even in this image in the Catholic Church, he's not slaying the dragon, which is
No.
often
What
portrayed.
what
He's
is that?
actually he's actually speaking to the dragon
Yes.
and having a conversation. And the dragon and the serpent in the cup usually represents the regenerative force, the regenerative rebirth of something greater, and the healing and the wisdom that can occur.
Absolutely. Definitely what pulled the dragon out of our reality are the many inquisitions and all the violence that's been thrown at our fundamental myths, which is including the feminine aspect of God. And it's been
Yeah.
dogmatized. And um, I know, okay, so I love this picture so much. It's so strong. It's like in Chartres, you know, like the dragon is Saint John is standing up on the dragon, like many other saints. Um, so you basically have unburied this dragon path from the territory of south of France and Catalonia. And speaking of the dragon, we cannot it also comes with feminine the power of feminine spirituality. So coming along with the dragon comes also Mary Magdalene, which has been all over your researches.
Well, I didn't know that she was connected, but her sites happen to lie on these ancient pathways. And I found that it's a long story. So on the Paris Meridian, I found many Magdalena churches and Templar
Sorry.
churches aligned on, okay, here's one example. Can you make it larger so it fills our screen?
I
Because it's pretty
wish.
small for
Oh, it's
people, I think.
small, really? Ah,
Yeah,
sorry. No, I don't, I'm not really good at this. I'm so
that's
sorry.
okay. That's okay, sweetie.
I will,
They can squint their eyes and
yeah,
look
yeah,
at
yeah,
it.
yeah, 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 yeah. Okay.
But basically, this map shows a great cross across the Pyrenees. And in about the middle of the image, you'll see mountains. Those are the Pyrenees. To the
Yes.
north is France. To the south is Catalonia or northeastern Spain.
Yes.
And the Paris Meridian is running right up north and south. And I discovered numerous Magdalena churches right along this path, right down all the way to Majorca.
Wow.
Magdalena Hills, Magdalena churches, Magdalena hermitages. It's extraordinary. And on the east-west path, I also found them, called it a Magdalena
Wow.
path.
Wow.
And it's also a path of the white dragon because the hill over on this direction looked very much like a white dragon. What was extraordinary, each one of these axes are 88 miles long.
Yeah,
And
I have a
at,
question. No, go ahead, go ahead.
yes, yeah,
No,
yeah,
because I was very fascinated with that when I studied the planetary grid, the ratio, the perfect ratio, like the golden ratio between all these sites and the very accurate ratios. And I think it's because that grid is um is my English is enclosed into the sacred geometries of this world. Like there's these ratios are very precise and they sustain all of life. Like numbers are sacred and
right. So there are perfect designs within this matrix of interconnected ancient sites. And some of them actually form perfect geometries. We found a perfect six-pointed star right in the area right around here, which would be, can you see my arrow?
no, where is it?
Okay, it's near the center of the cross,
Mm-hmm.
but it's just in the southwest or southeast here.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, we found a series of Magdalena churches that marked hilltops that formed a perfect six-pointed star, exact.
Amazing. Amazing.
Actually, it was the Templar churches around the
Yes,
Magdalena in the center. That's that, yeah. And
absolutely.
this cross that I discovered, I actually had a dream. And in the dream, I was part of a galactic team that came to the planet to prepare part of the grid work for future humanity, for the to create a radiant zone of benevolent energy for people to thrive and all beings, animals, everybody, all life forms to thrive in the future times. And in my dream, it was, could have been 100 or more thousand years ago. I didn't get an exact time. But in the dream, I came to help lay this grid. We were a galactic team, and there was no ego involved. We just laid the grid, and it was a cross shape. And then later,
Amazing.
years later, I discovered this cross laying over the Pyrenees, and I went, "Wow, could it be?" And guess what? This is just the crazy part. At the end of each of these 44-mile long cross arms, the forearms, at the end of each one of them is not just a standing stone or a dolmen, but a group, a family of them centered around this point in the landscape, marking this ancient cross. So ancient people were so connected still
Of
that they just
course.
knew where to put their temples. And the one at the north point is actually where I am around Rennes-les-Bains right now. And the eastern
Oui.
point is a site called Coberteia. It's a great dolmen, and it's within a series of 43 megalithic sites on the Cap de
Wow.
Creus. The Cap de Creus is at the eastern point of the Pyrenees in Iberia, and guess what? It's called Cape of the Cross or Head of the Cross.
Oh my God. So they knew.
And the dome in Coberteia, it's called Creu de en Coberteia in Catalan. It means covered cross.
Wow.
Is that crazy? So
That's
at the end,
amazing.
at the end of each of these arms is a whole grouping of megaliths.
Uh-huh. Annie, it's so mind-blowing. It's so mind-blowing. Like many times, well, the first time I came across a dolmen in Brittany, I cried for hours because I felt I was back with my people. And whenever
Yeah.
I was back with the work that I had done like thousands of years ago. And
Yes.
okay, so you have uncovered this cross, which is very much an imagery of the Gnostic cross, like that cross where everything is very balanced. There's a few things, like there's a few questions I have for you, but before we go deeper into that, I just wanted to bounce back on the Mary Magdalene because let me just go get one thing very quickly. Okay, so the symbol of the Black Virgin has used to be depicted sitting on dragons because she is the
Yes.
feminine aspect of God is sitting on the most occulted. It's empathy, it's profound empathy. So it's sitting on the dragon, on the snakes, and we can see it in what our ancestors have left. So I
As is as is Kuan Yin. She's
Yes, all of them
on the
throughout
dragons.
all the different cultures of the world, it's always the same symbol. So there's no surprises that so after Isis, Mary Magdalene, the era of Isis, Mary Magdalene became kind of the Isis because she brought primitive Christianity to southern France and Catalonia. And so it's not a surprise to that all these Magdalene churches are on the path of the dragon because and that it's all
Yeah.
been named in honor to her, which is a very has been very much denied in the church
Right.
because she
Right.
symbolizes the power of resiliency, the initiatory power that comes within. So I
Yes,
just
the dark places, the power in the dark places, like
exactly.
Peter Kingsley. And you know, what's interesting, I'm glad you brought up Our Lady of Catalonia and the Black Madonna. Um, Our Lady of Montserrat.
Yes, I'm going there
It's a
very soon.
Okay, very magical mountain,
Yes,
very
yes,
ancient goddess site. In fact, there
yes.
are caves inside the mountain that are gated, that are dedicated to the mother goddess. And there are two of the earliest known churches dedicated to Mary Magdalene in the entire Western continents.
Wow. In
Are
Montserrat?
in One is in Montserrat. It was a
Mm-hmm.
hermitage. There's an image in
Yes.
my book of it.
Wow.
The original hermitage could have been created around 300, 370 AD, same time period as her chapel along the Mediterranean at a place called Empurias, right to the northwest of Montserrat, right right close to the right arm of the cross that you're seeing.
Mm.
Could we go to one of the dolmens? Oh,
Yes,
and
yes,
I know
yes, yes.
you wanted to talk about Mary Magdalene, but you know, I mean, she's everywhere in that. In
Yes.
Catalonia, in Catalonia alone, I found 64 churches dedicated to her. And 64.
Nothing
Now
less.
that's just the tiny little section of Spain that we're seeing in this bottom
Yeah.
section of this image. It's just a
Yes.
little area in the northeast of Spain.
Wow.
64 and 64 codons in the gene keys, right? That make up all
Wow.
living forms, the 64 combinations, the 64 questions of Mary and the Pistis Sophia, of which Mary
Wow.
Magdalene asked the most intelligent and the most questions. 64 squares on the chessboard, the game of choices in life. 64 hexagrams in the I Ching. It just goes on and on. The patterns that
Yeah,
we
this
find.
the sacred codes that are holding our dimension coherently.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
And I know where you're going to show the whole way of the Camino de Santiago de Compostela at some point. It's way beyond this one, but maybe you can jump forward.
Okay, so
Let's, we're gonna
where should I
it
go?
keep going forward, keep going. There she is. Okay, whoop, back. You had her. There you
Yes,
go.
Compostela.
Okay, this is the overarching Milky Way over the
Neat.
Santiago de Compostela, and
Wow.
and this was called the Way of the Stars previous 5,000 years previous to it becoming the Camino de Santiago. This
Wow.
was discovered by an astrophysicist, a German astrophysicist, Heinz Comiskey, I believe. And he's written books on these ancient star paths. So it was called the Way of the Stars, and it goes right along uh, the southern flanks of the Pyrenees range. And I've marked it here with the great Egyptian goddess Nut, with all the stars in the Milky Way forming her body. And she gives birth to the sun every morning at the east. And then
Mm.
the sun disappears in the west, and she feeds. You can see the milk pouring from her breast. She feeds all living forms with this starlight energy. So the Magdalene sites are dotted all along this route of the ancient way of the stars. It's incredible.
Wow.
Okay, so
Oh,
on the in the right-hand section of this image is where we saw just that little right-hand corner is where we saw the Great Cross. And
oh, here. Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah,
Venus
yeah.
Temple. I
The
just want
60,
to I feel
yeah,
like I want to I just want to bounce on what you just said. Like I really feel that France and Catalonia and that whole part of the world, there's a descent of what is called in the alchemistic tradition the spiritus mundi. Spiritus
yes,
mundi. It's like a
yes,
territory where
hmm,
the cosmic energy
yes,
descend very strongly on Earth, more than
yes.
any than other places. And
Well, it's hard to say more, but it's definitely a strong place.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean,
And it has, yeah,
in Europe, I find like if I go to Paris or like there's something so strong, and the whole area of the Languedoc and the Pyrenees, like there's the sacred sites are just so vibrant. Anyway,
yes, yes, absolutely, absolutely. Could we go back to the dolmen?
yes, let's go back to the dolmen. Okay, so here's the cross, the cross that we were looking at right next to Venus Temple.
Yeah,
The
it's marked on the eastern end by an ancient Venus temple, by the way, right?
yes, 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 yes. So is this the dolmen that you wanted with the constellation above, or
Yes, yes,
yes?
yes, yes. This is Creu de Cobertea, the covered cross, which is located at the Cape of the Cross, Cap de Creus, at
The
the
Cape of
eastern.
the Cross, eastern, yeah, by the near the
So
ocean.
it's the dolmen of the covered cross on the
Yes.
Cape of the Cross, marking the
Yes.
eastern end of the Pyrenees and
Wow.
the eastern end of the Great Cross. And this dolmen is the largest dolmen in Catalonia. It's so
Wow.
large that you can walk in there and, have a little party. I mean, it's really it's big. And so I discovered many things about this. So not only this dolmen, but almost all of the uh, dolmens and menhirs in the whole region of the Pyrenees were calibrated using the pole star, which at the time they were erected, many of them were erected around 3,500 to 4,000 BC. Draco the dragon was the constellation marking the northern pole star.
Hmm.
Okay. So we have here showing Draco the dragon aligned with the northern end, the back of the dolmen. The front of it faces south. The back faces due north to the pole star axis. And it's marked with a tiny umbilical carving. It is about an inch in diameter and an inch deep. And it's an umbilical or a navel that
Wow.
marks origins. It marks
Wow.
energy paths. We
Wow.
find them in some of the Armenian churches. We find them in the some of the dolmens and standing stones. So these umbilical holes, you can see there's a subtle cord going from the dolmen up to the star. They're cords of pathways that the pharaohs would take in the afterlife journey to the
Wow.
stars.
What
Or you
is
can,
feral? What is
a
pharaohs?
pharaoh is like the king of Egypt, the ruler of
Okay.
Egypt. And
Wow.
they were
Mhm.
female and male, by the way.
Pharaon. Okay, pharaon. Oui, oui, oui. Okay. Wow.
And so we can
Amazing.
also look at this umbilical cord as being, we are born from the stars. We are all stardust. We are formed from old exploded stars, and the neutrinos that travel from those
Yes.
galaxies are
Yes.
our bones and our tissues, right? And
Wow.
so it's like that umbilical cord also connects us with our great mother that gives birth to all of us. So in this dolmen, could you go to the next slide? There's an
Hmm.
incredible phenomenon that happens on the winter solstice. This is inside the dolmen. And in the northern axis comes this dagger on the left side of the image. And on the right side, you can see like a sunbird or a winged dragon formed in the corner of the dolmen. And this is
Wow.
formed by the sun shining in at winter solstice sunset. And I was there, I've been there almost every solstice for the last quite a few years, checking this out. And my friend, I had never thought to put my hand in the light. It felt presumptuous, but my friend said, just feel what it feels like. And I did, and it was so hot, it was burning my hand. I had to take my hand away. So, what
Wow.
happens at this time is there's a seeding of life energy.
Oh my
It's
God.
like the dolmen is like a womb
Wow.
receptacle receiving the light of the sun to give rebirth and fecundity to the land and all beings for the
Wow.
next cycle.
Wow.
Born of the light.
Oh, Annie, I love you so much.
It's
I love you so
mutual.
much. Oh my
It's
God.
mutual.
It's crazy. Wow. Thank you so much. This is incredible. Like, thank you. Wow, I'm so moved right now. It's so profound. It's so profound. Thanks for uncovering all that for us. That is so priceless.
Thank you, Eve Marie, because you're giving me the opportunity to remember all of these experiences that, we get busy in our lives. We forget how
Oh,
extraordinary some of those things are.
I agree.
It's an amazing world out there, and we get so distracted with what's going on in the world, and we think it's a disaster zone, but actually we're really on an amazing ascension course. It's just things are crumbling in the meantime.
It is, and that's why we need to remember these things because they are our legacy. They are the things that we can really lean on in order to rebuild our strength, to rebuild our sense of belonging, our sense of identity with a greater self.
Yeah.
reconnect with our ancestors and respark that ancient knowledge, bring it back into our life as we can garden this ethereal matrix of light. I feel there's something about identity that is so profound. When I sing in those places and I connect with the ancestors, like they come through so strong and it brings back this feeling of connection and identity that is beyond all the programming.
You
It's
know, yes, you know what you when you were mentioning you were in the Brittany
yeah,
and you fell in love, you were crying, in the dolmen. You felt like you'd come home, and I had that same feeling in Cobertea. I I cried and I felt like I was in a center point. And then I wrote a love song for the Stones, and the love song you could apply it to a person. I will never, how does it go? I will always remember you as long as stars will shine. Your ancient, your ancient guardianship of the light, something throughout as long as time exists. It goes on and on. And it could be written instead of to a pile of stones, to a great person or something, because there was so much love in the song. And each site had a song, you know,
of course.
and how I got the song was sitting in the temple in the stones listening and listening.
Absolutely. To
And I had a
this.
small harp and I was plucking the strings to see what was the resonance. I heard E, play E, and I played an E string. And then I heard B, play the B string. And there was a miracle that occurred. And this is a point that I think is important because when we do these things, it's not just for ourselves, it's for the whole cosmos, it's for the whole matrix, it's for the entire planet.
Absolutely.
And as I was playing this E and B, it's called a perfect fifth on a harp, E and B, and it developed into the song. And I was playing it and singing in there, and I went back to my B and B that afternoon, and there was a notice from spaceweather.com. They work with NASA and all these space programs, and they monitor what's happening in space. And at the exact moment I was in there getting this EB tone, there was a very rare tone measured at the North Pole. I was also doing the northern axis alignment in this temple, which has the umbilical to the North Pole. There was a frequency that came in from the sun, from the cosmos, into the North Pole axis of the Earth, exactly in that tone B in that chord. And
Amazing.
I contacted when the announcement came, I contacted the physicist who had measured it, and I said, "Can you give me the frequency that you measured?" And it was a frequency that was resonating not only in the atmosphere of the Earth, but in the ground, and it sustained for like hours. He said it was like the sun kissing the earth with a song. It was simultaneous to me doing this song in that tone
Wow.
in the stone temple aligned with the northern axis. So, when we do these things, we're not just doing them separately at all. We're doing them for the whole grid, the whole humanity and all living beings.
Absolutely. I totally 100% agree with this. And the fact that, you have information from the scientist world comes and re-enhance that knowledge. Like,
Yeah.
we used to garden the planetary grid on sacred sites, like co-creators of these realms, and
Yep.
sound. is the food of that planetary. Sound is an elemental power
Yes.
that that with which we co-create with the elemental forces of the earth. And this is what the druids used to do, working on the legacy with the legacy of the giants. I totally agree with that. It's absolutely amazing. S-
Well, the dragons told me, they said they thrive on our music, on our songs, and all nature does.
Absolutely. I bring people on the ancient sacred sites of the area often to go sing and do rituals in caves where the native used to live. And I always feel a very strong response from the intelligence of nature. I receive teachings, and many times I've seen the vortexes of the sacred sites pulsing, like when I do astral traveling. I see them pulsing with different colors after the ritual, the sound ritual. They
Yes.
inform me, they teach me things, and they pulse with different colors in the landscapes. Which brings me to, so basically, you have uncovered this cross in the landscape a lot with your dreams. You are dreaming a lot in the spirit realm.
Yeah.
Is
Yeah.
that
Yeah. So
true?
the whole book was precipitated first by dreams. The first dream was I was shown an image of the Pyrenees, and there was a voice that kept coming to me. I haven't identified the voice, but it's my guidance. And the voice would say, "You need to light 4 sacred fires." Where? Well, you'll find out on your quest. And so the whole journey took me in this discovery. I ended up lighting the 4 fires at the places where the 4 arms of the
Of the
cross ended,
cross. Like,
and
okay.
that's how I discovered the cross. And then I remembered the dream, the original dream of the cross placing. And I mean, it all just fit together and evolved quite naturally, but guided
That's
by dreams,
amazing.
but then finding things that are actually grounded and rooted on the earth that you can measure. I think you'll be excited about the next book because it's all about the Celtic people that you love so much, and the Druid traditions, and the female Druids as well, and the dragon serpent traditions that they carried as well. And
I
I
can't
found
wait.
another great cross, but further north on the meridian, and
Wow.
star patterns galore. And adding into not only 5 and 6 pointed stars marked by Magdalene and Templar sites and megaliths, but 7 pointed stars
Wow.
all around the Paris meridian, and just and it's kind of an unbelievable story, but you can measure it, and I'm going to have maps showing the exact locations, how you can go to these places and find them. And it was extraordinary because when we were talking about radiant zone around the Pyrenees, I really feel that. And the place to the north that I found is in the heartland of ancient Gaul, and it's what I felt
Is that
sleeping.
Bourges?
Yeah, Bourges.
Bourges.
It's sleeping. It's sleeping right now.
Okay, we need to
It-
go there together, Annie.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Let's go sing in there. Like,
I did
because,
that. I did that when
yeah, I know you
I went
did.
in the November. I spent 8 days
Yes.
singing at as many points as I could get to in 8 days. I covered a lot. But it was magical. It was a magical land that I think is has been forgotten and is sleeping because it was filled with Templar sites, a Magdalena named villages, not really many Magdalena churches right there, further down and then north on the meridian. But right there, it was a place that was wanting to be awakened, because it had its heyday. It was once the place of royalty and Templars and all this medieval and Celtic. It was the heart of the Celtic kings of Gaul.
Oh my God, I'm going there. Like, I'm so excited. I'm leaving on the 20th. I'm coming for a month and I'm just gonna, I can't wait. That's amazing, Annie. Um, I had another question for you. What was it again? Ah, no, it's not super important, but I mean, your knowledge is absolutely mind-blowing. It's and it confirms so much for me of my path and my deepest passion. And I'm sure it's going to spark and resonate so much in other people. I can't wait to see your new book, um, and to see you in a
It will
few
be
weeks.
wonderful. I will love, love,
Yes.
love that. I feel our connection is really strong and it actually feeds me as well. You know, talking about these things helps give me energy to write the next book, which is already begun. And I wanted to mention one thing about the first book, Guardians of the Dragon
Yes.
Path.
Mm-hmm.
I created along with that a double album of music of songs that were
Mm-hmm.
inspired by all of the stone sites of the Our Lady of Montserrat, the Black Madonna, the Magdalene sites, the Isis site, the Hygeia Asclepius site. They all have their songs. So there's a double album that accompanies the book as well as for a video map. I just posted it on Facebook if
Uh,
anybody's on Facebook.
Amazing.
And it's
I will put the link in the description of our videos. Yes.
great because there are
Yeah.
14 videos that we shot on location that people
Wow.
can learn about more of the history and the magic of these sites, and
Amazing.
as well as a lyric book. So it's a whole package of multi media experience for people.
That's incredible, Annie. I will definitely put that in the description of this podcast. I think it would be so incredible to create journeys together. Like it's coming strong. Like I think we could do pretty amazing.
In the Celtic lands,
Yes,
in the next piece, I really,
absolutely,
yeah,
absolutely,
yeah,
100%. You also have an online course.
yes.
Do you want to
It's
talk
called,
about this?
yeah, yeah. Thank you. It's called Sound Alchemy Bioacoustic Medicine. And it's a course in understanding the power of sound to transform our energy. And it focuses on training people to do what I'm doing with voice diagnostics, voice analysis, which is how to measure the sounds in our natural speaking voices that tell our story. It tells the state of
Mm.
our being, of our soul, body,
Wow.
mind, emotions. And most people have about half of the possible frequencies in the musical scale that they're using. The other half, it's like, the portion of the brain that we're using is tiny. Well, the portion of our voices that we're using is also small. And when we bring in the missing tones, we create greater potential for health, happiness, creativity, productivity. It just keeps increasing when we have all of the frequencies, that wholeness.
Absolutely. Absolutely, because is at the origin of form, of matter. So when we
Exactly.
recuperate that, we bring the sustainable vibration for that diversity to come into action in our life.
Absolutely.
Amazing. So you have an online training explaining all of this and
Yeah, it's ongoing, so people can jump in whenever they like, and they can go at their own pace. It's not, something once in a while that you have to all of a sudden do, and there's a whole payment program. It's tailored to fit anybody and everybody. So, their schedule of time, when they're and how fast they want to do it. Like I have
Wow, that's great.
my granddaughters are doing it. And they're just taking it, one lesson to their 37 modules. So they're taking it in their
Wow.
own timing.
Wow, you're such a worker, Annie. Like I bow down to your passion and how much you are like the inheritance that you're giving to this world is so profound and so wealthy. How do you say that? Rich in French we say is very fertile. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that legacy that we want to give
legacy.
to the world. I have one little thing to add, and that is the newest part of my legacy is with my great grandson, Sebastian. He's about 8 years old, maybe 9 now. I can't keep track. They're growing really fast. I'm tr teaching him. I gave him a small bard's harp and a troubadour harp, and he's learning to play, and he's a natural. We did a Zoom lesson this last week, and we played a duet live on Zoom, and he's just starting. So I know he's going to thrive.
Wow, of course. That's amazing. I feel like sharing this the dream I had the night before I met you. I was traveling in the stars and I've been studying the cathedrals Notre Dame in France and I had just learned that they were mirroring the constellation of the Virgo in the sky and I had this dream and it was telling me to go into the desert and meditate on the constellation of the Virgo because that constellation when you receive the sound of that constellation it has the power to rematrix the original power of femininity like the goddess the great goddess the virgin
Mm.
and and that day that was the dream I had and that's when I met you and then I heard about the work that you do with the sound of the constellation and everything and I was like oh my God like this is so special.
Okay, I'm getting an idea. So for book two, I'm one of the many maps is the Virgo constellations and the Notre Dame churches in northern France.
Yes.
And so you and I have to do something there.
Yes.
And I have to write something about what you say about it because what you just encapsulated in a few words was beautiful. And I want to
Mm-hmm.
include you in that part of the book because it's,
Yeah.
bringing that great mother energy and catalyzing it on the planet in us.
Absolutely. Like when I go into dolmens, like that's what I feel. I feel like the giants have been able to capture the essence of that matrix and it heals, it brings back the virgin in me. Like it brings back the virgin in humans. One last question that I had. I mean, that would be a pure honor to be part of that book in some ways about that topic because that's a topic that
Yeah,
really
yeah.
fascinates me. I have learned in my latest researches that Virgin Mary was created in the year 1000 by Bernard de Clairvaux, which was the master of the Cistercian order and the master of the Templars, and he created Virgin Mary so that the feminine figure would have a life in the Catholic Church. But before that, we were relying much more on the Black Virgin, which is much more the archetypal symbolism of what the feminine principle is to be able to sit in the darkest subconscious places and so that the inner prophetic revelation is born out of that. What do you
Well,
think of
she
this? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought it up because in my understanding, Saint Bernard de Clairvaux had a beautiful vision of Mother Mary coming to him and feeding him milk out of her breasts, just like the image we saw
Newt
of
of Newt.
of Nut,
Wow.
the goddess of the Milky Way, feeding us with the milk of her breast.
Yeah.
And so he had that great vision. And so he really honored her, but of course she existed in the minds and hearts of people way before
Yeah.
as the mother of Jesus and was really honored at Ephesus. and I feel that she was very friendly with the traditions and priestesses and priests of Ephesus because she lived there
Mm.
purportedly in her late years.
Yeah,
Um,
okay.
but this idea of the Great Mother in however we look at it and however we bring her forward is so essential for the planet right now because we can see things playing out on the planet, mainly with male rulers playing out the old games and the old paradigms of war, destruction, one-upmanship, power, control. And you have these wonderful female leaders in a few of the countries that are stepping forth and saying, no, that's not how we're doing it. And so, we're in that transition point, but the more we can bring the feminine back in all people, if the president of such and such country had more of the feminine spirit in him, he wouldn't be doing what he's doing now.
No, she's the resiliency of the world, that great mother, that deep alchemist, like the crucible of all human traumas for me is within the Great Mother, and that is what has been occulted. I really believe our
Absolutely.
resiliency is in our capacity to connect again with that crucible of empathy that holds all life together in their deepest, most disturbed emotional space. That's when the Magdalene Tower can rise again, the Tower of the Soul.
The
Okay,
Shakti, all of that feminine energy in all beings. Yes, so it is. Thank you so much for having
yes,
me.
yes. I have one last question. I'm sorry.
Oh,
The Benedictine cross on your book.
yeah.
Can you tell me something about this? I know it's
Yeah.
mirroring the cross that you unbury, the megalithic
Yeah,
cross.
it's an equal arm cross
I
with
have it in my
sim
neck.
oh, wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have it on my altar there. And basically it's an amulet created for Saint Benedict who brought the Benedictine rule to the Benedictine order, which is a, a rule that is really beautiful and still used today. And many people don't know that St. Benedict had a twin sister, Scholastica,
Oh,
who
really?
created women's orders. Maybe I
Wow.
should post the missing chapter that I had to cut
Oh,
out of the
yeah.
first book because it's all about Scholastica and how amazing she was. Anyway, the Saint Benedict's amulet on one side has the cross with it. It speaks about the light of the cross. The symbols are all symbolic for the first letter of Latin phrases. Let the light of the cross guide me. And in the cross sections, it says, "Let not the dragon be my guide," but I left out the non or the not in the Latin, and I said, "Let the dragon be my guide." And it was an amulet that came to me uh, way before I started writing the book. And I started wearing it as I started discovering the various sites in the book and the sites of the four fires. So it was Saint Benedict that was guiding me.
Of course, because they are also the keepers of all the druids and the alchemist knowledge. The
Exactly. So
Yeah.
where he lived outside of Rome were all the Druid communities. The Celts were right there.
Absolutely, and I've learned that they were the keepers of that knowledge throughout the Inquisition, and that's also why they were thrown out of the country during the French Revolution, and they had to fled to Belgium, and eventually they came here and they created this abbey not too far from where I live, where there's a lot of these ancient
Wonderful.
archives and on this very special sacred site. Mm.
Beautiful. Oh, my dear, it has been
Okay.
wonderful. Thank you, thank you, thank
So,
you.
so great. I am so excited to share this interview with my people so that they may know your work and the power of your work. And we'll see each other very soon, in less than a month, I think.
Beautiful,
In the
beautiful.
retreat
Yes.
in the south of France. I have such a beautiful group this year, incredible group of
Mm,
women. There will be 12 of us in total. So I'm very much looking forward to see you and connect again.
yeah.
And I'm ever so grateful for the work that you're doing on this planet, Annie.
Thank
Thank
you.
you
Thank you.
so much. I love
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for having me and all blessings on everyone who watches this and that connects with all of these things. Thank you.
Yes, and send my love to our beloved Alan.
Yes. Yes. He 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 just built a harp. It's incredible.
Oh, nice. Amazing. Alan. Okay, see you at the seat of Isis very soon.
Thank you.
Mm.
Blessings.